A warm good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to Unacademy's YouTube channel. Let's crack UPSC CSE English. So as you know, we are doing a crash course on ecology and environment for UPSC CSE Prelims 2020 and further upon. So today's topic we'll be discussing about introduction to biomes. So yesterday we have discussed about topics like biogeochemical cycles, right? Biogeochemical cycles, what are biogeochemical cycles, etc. We have broadly discussed about oxygen, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and carbon, nitrogen, and water cycle, etc. We have broadly discussed about them. Then similarly, we'll be discussing about now today we'll be discussing about biomes as a chapter. So we'll be discussing about all these things. Then this is about me. So myself, Venkatesh Emani. I have love teaching. So that is the reason why I am expanding my horizons. Apart from offline classes, I'm also now trying to have a online classes. Then this is coming to the before discussing about today's class, etc. Let's briefly understand about the platform. So Unacademy is one of the largest learning platform available online for cracking UPSC, CSE, etc. You can have unlimited live and recorded courses from India's best educators, etc. You can subscribe it, etc. by downloading the Unacademy's learning app by in your Play Store, and then etc. You can subscribe it, etc. Please remember, you have to download the learning app, not the Educator app. What will be the advantages you will be having? What will you get? That's what you have. What you will get? What you will get is unlimited access to all the top educators. Please remember, the subscription is not meant for one course. It is meant for all the courses for the entire time period. So it is almost like a time period based system, not like a course based system. So here we are trying to if you are subscribing it for 1 month, the entire courses whichever are available will be available, which are available in the platform, all those things will be available to you. So you have all these top educators, people like Sudarshan sir, Ayush sir, Mrunal sir, right, Saurabh sir, Siddharth sir, Deepika Reddy madam, all these things we will be having. All these educators, top educators, etc. You will have access to all their courses and platforms. Then what will you get in the Unacademy app, etc. You will be having a topics like special classes. See, special classes are free for you. These are the things, etc. where there is, we will be trying to give you a how Unacademy platform will look like, what are the advantages. So it is like a transition phase. So how Unacademy special classes will be useful for you, all these things will be available here. Then what advantages you'll be having here? You'll be having things like flexible schedule, language of your choice, etc. And unlimited practice, etc. What do you mean by flexibility here? Yes. What do you mean by flexibility, etc.? The flexibility here, it depends on the kind of topics which you wanted to prepare. How are you able to prepare and all? That flexibility is very much useful for you, etc. Say, for example, if you are preparing around if you are preparing a subject like environment, you are very good at the basics. What you can do, you can practice MCQs available. If you are not good at basics of ecology, what you can do a structured course of ecology, environment, etc. So what I'm trying to say is, the flexibility is not just by daily timetable. The flexibility is also with the kind of courses and the kind of nature of preparation which you will be having, right? Then what will you get? You will feel like you are right in the classroom. You can chat with me, the educator. You can have interactive polls, etc. You can learn anytime, anywhere. That is the most important the most important advantage you have. You can learn anytime. That is the flexibility, and anywhere, etc. That because of the kind of internet connections which you have, etc. Right? Then coming to the subscription, etc. We have multiple subscription things, etc. 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, etc. You can choose whichever you want, but I would suggest you to either go for 12 months or 24 months. Why? Because first of all, UPSC preparation itself will takes around UPSC preparation, that itself will take around so much, around after 20 months time, etc. Then if you subscribe around course around 12 months course, what gain you will be having? So if you subscribe around 12 months course, you will be providing around 40,000 rupees. Yes, 40,000 rupees. If you subscribe for 24 months, you will be getting around 48,000. So and if you get subscribing for 1 month, what are you getting? You are getting 8,000. So imagine 24 into 8 or 12 into 8. Yes, 12 into 8 months. So 8,000 per month and 12, etc. You will be paying around 96,000. 96,000, etc. But you will paying here only around 40,000. Why? 40,000, 12 months, etc. That is the long term subscription amount. So you'll be paying a, you will be reducing humans. So the per month amount will be only 3,333. So drastic reduction. Added to that, etc. If you go for 24 months, it is just like 12 months plus 1 month, 40,000 plus 8,000, 48. And if you use, and please remember to use this code VE10. This is a code from me which I am providing to you, where in which you will be provided a 10% discount on the topic. So 48 will become 43,200. Yes. So that is about the platform, etc. Before discussing about today's topic, etc. So there is some brief thing which I would like to tell you. So before discussing about today's topic as a whole, what I would like to tell you is some basic things, etc. regarding the present corona pandemic and the crisis, right? So what I would like to tell you is, please be safe, avoid all kind of public associations, etc. Avoid all public gatherings where there is more people, etc. See, as a student, you will be having an advantages of, so this is a crisis for everyone. Always try to convert crisis into opportunity. How you can convert this crisis into opportunity? Presently you have around so much amount of time right now, etc., where you have to sit at a certain place. You cannot go outside as easily as you are supposed to in the past. Excuse me, whether you are sitting at your home or whether you are sitting at your hostel, wherever, etc., sit at your home, then plan your schedule accordingly, etc. Opportunity for you to reframe your mode of preparation, etc., and re-energize. So as you are preparing, etc., how are you preparing right now? Until now, maybe you are taking to certain classes, you are going to some classes here and there, etc. You are daily moving from one place to another, because of it there is so much amount of time which is being wasted. Now you are supposed to sit at a certain place, reframe your preparation, etc., re-energize, etc. Think about how your preparation is happening, etc. What are you trying to do, and use this advantage to practice as many MCQs as possible, etc. These things, etc., will help you in understanding as much as possible in the longer run. And these things, etc., now that if you have not practiced any kind of things, etc., this is a time for you to practice also. So what you can do, you can practice as much things as possible. As you practice also MCQs, etc., you will be having more advantages. So this is what I would try to tell you. Use this opportunity, except crisis, as an opportunity. Reframe your preparation. Practice as many MCQs as possible. Listen to the topics which are available online, etc., in Unacademy, which you can use your preparation, etc. So, for example, to be able to provide for this, we are trying to provide as many around 20,000 classes for you. So we are providing around 20,000 free classes for you, etc., so that you cannot go roam from one place to another. You can sit at your own place and learn as much as possible, etc. So this is the advantage, etc. Please don't panic. Try to understand as much as possible from the topics, and in the Unacademy platform, etc., you can always contact us, etc., for any kind of doubts. So any doubt you have, please contact us. You can always contact. We are here to help you, and you need not go from place to place and what do you say, do some kind of risky activities, etc., right? So that's it about this. Then today's topic, etc. Before we discuss about this topic called biomes, as I have briefly told you, today's topic will be around introduction to biomes. Introduction, not just biomes discussion. So we'll be discussing about introduction. Before discussing biomes, what I would like to tell you is, as this topic is more geographical in nature, as this topic is more geographical in nature, what I am trying to do, I'll discuss briefly about some of the geographical concepts like rotation, revolution, and equinoxes about solstices. Though I'll discuss rotation and revolution a bit more faster manner, I will discuss in detail about equinoxes and solstices because they have very big role to play to understand so many concepts. So in detail about equinoxes and solstices, we will deal with this. So it takes around so much amount of time. So equinoxes and solstices, all these things, basically geographical. Almost majority of the session today will be like a geographical class rather than a environmental class. Why? Because to understand biomes, you should have a thorough understanding of geography also. That is the reason why I am trying to discuss about these things. Yes, let's start. So before discussing about these things, I have told you rotation and revolution. These we are calling at worst motions of the earth. So motions of the earth, etc. Then rotation and revolution. These are the motions, etc. How the earth moves is what motions of the earth. Two types of movements of the earth: rotation and revolution. Rotation and revolution. Rotation is the movement of the earth on its axis. Rotation, as you know, it is the movement of the earth on its own axis. So if this is the globe, if this is the axis, etc., how is the globe is moving? Earth is moving on its own axis. We call it as rotation, etc. As you know, earth rotates west to east. Rotational axis makes an angle of 23.5 degrees, that is, it is tilted. So ignore the spelling mistake. It is tilted. Earth rotates west to east, etc. You know, earth rotates not from sun rises in the east, right? Sun rises in the east, etc. So the very universal truth in English class. So the very universal concept like sun rises in the east is geographically it is a bit different. Sun does not rises, rather the sun is always a constant and the earth is moving moving around it, etc. As the earth rotates from west to east, etc., it looks like sun is rising from the east. So that is why sun rises in the east, etc. So as a geographical, as an English lecturer, etc., if there is an English lecturer, I can argue with him that sun rises in the east is not a, what is a universal truth. So there is a tug of war between me and a English teacher. Yes, anyhow, leave about that. What I'm trying to say is, please remember, earth rotates not from east to west, it always rotates from west to east. As it rotates from west to east, it looks like sun is rising from the east. So this rotational angle makes an angle of 23.5 degrees, that is why it is rotating, and rotational axis makes an angle of 23.5 degrees, that is why the earth looks like a tilted shape. So what is this tilt, etc., we'll discuss later on. The axis of the Earth, which is an imaginary line, makes an angle of 66.5 degrees with its orbital plane. So let's discuss that, what I'm trying to say. You can see in this photograph, just a minute. You can see in this photograph, etc. This is the axis, this is the equator. As you can see, etc. This is how the Earth looks like from the outer space. As it looks like, it is making a tilt. So this tilt of 23.5 degrees is the reason why, etc. You will find these variations, etc. Because of which, etc. You will have so many variations. Yes, the axis, that's what the rotational axis makes an angle of 23.5 degrees. Then, because of the spherical shape of the Earth, only half of it gets light from the sun at a time. The portion facing the sun experiences day while the other half experiences night. We know days and nights are formed because of rotation of the Earth. Then the circle that divides the day from the night on the globe is called circle of illumination. Circle of illumination. As you see, have seen in the recent, in the just now diagram, etc. You have seen that one side of the globe is illuminated, the other side is not illuminated. The side which is illuminated is called day and not illuminated is globe. So this is what rotation, etc. Then revolution. The Earth around rotates, moves around the sun. This movement is called revolution. You know that the orbit of the Earth is elliptical in nature. It is elliptical. How many days does it take for revolution? It takes 365, 1 by 4th day to revolve around the sun. Then for every 4 years, 1 day is added to February. That is why it is called leap year. So 1 by 4 into 4. Then seasons. So what is happening? Seasons are formed because of revolution. So days and night rotation and seasons are formed because of revolution. Please remember this word. Seasons are formed because of 10. This is what rotation and revolutions are, and the elaboration part of the revolution itself is what equinoxes and solstices are. We will discuss that in detail. So what is equinox? Yes, can anybody explain in the chat section? Anybody who is watching live, what is equinox? What is equinox? Anyhow, okay. Equinox is nothing but equal amount of day and night across the globe is called as equinox. What is solstice? Solstice is nothing but where the length of the day or night will be the most maximum in a year. The day which is the most maximum is called as a solstice day, either maximum or minimum. Either day will be maximum or night will be maximum, or else the opposite will be the minimum, etc. So this is what we call equinoxes and solstices, etc. What is the significance of equinoxes and solstices is very, very, very important for so many geographical concepts. So, for example, etc., if you wanted to understand topics like monsoons, topics like monsoons, topics like how seasons are varying across the world, topics like etc., why different areas have different climatic characteristics. All these things, etc., equinoxes and solstices are the most important concept, etc. So seasons, monsoons, different areas, etc. There is so much amount of clarity. So this basic class of today will be of immense help to you in the longer run of understanding so many concepts. So what is an equinox? Equinox is on this day what happens? Direct rays of the sun fall on the equator. So as you know, there are three more important latitudes, etc. So three important latitudes. Just a minute. So equator 0 degrees, then 23.5 degrees Celsius, sorry, 23.5 degrees north latitude, then 23.5 degrees south latitude, etc. So latitudes, etc. are the imaginary lines drawn parallel to the earth, as you know. Then what are the important latitudes? Why 23.5 degree north latitude is the most important? Is the important? Why it is important? I think right from your childhood, if you have studied geography, always the question mark is around. Always the latitudes, etc. They would tell you about most important latitudes like 0, 23.5, 66 and half, and 90 degrees. So 90 degrees north and south 2, 66 and half north and south 2, 23.6 north and south 2, and then 1, total around 7 important latitudes. Why these are important latitudes? What is the reason behind that? What is 23.5? If you can see here, you can never see the vertical rays. If you can see in this picture, vertical rays, right? These vertical rays will be always falling between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. So vertical rays will never be beyond these latitudes in a year. So you can see vertical rays in this figure 9 are at around Tropic of Capricorn, and figure 8 are at around equator, and figure 7 you can see they are at Tropic of Cancer. So figure 7 Tropic of Cancer vertical rays, and figure 9 you can see vertical rays at Tropic of Capricorn. So because of these variations, etc., we can always find out that vertical rays, as they cannot cross these lines, these are the end points. These latitudes of 23.5 and 23.5 north and south, that is Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, have become important latitudes. So next time anybody asks you why 23.5 degrees north latitude is important latitude, because beyond that no vertical rays of the sun can be seen in a year. That is the answer. Beyond that, no vertical rays. Within this range from 23.5 to 23.5 north to 23.5 south, you can find vertical rays, and beyond that you can never find. So this is the point which you need to remember. Then why Tropic of Cancer is named so? Tropic of Cancer is named so. Why it is named so? Think. The reason why the Greeks, while they're trying to study about this aspect, etc., they found out the Tropic of Cancer, the line of 23.5 degrees north latitude, they found out very near to the Cancer constellation. This is geographical knowledge, etc. Okay, nobody will ask you this as part of in preliminary exam. So 23.5 degrees north is named so because it is located to Cancer constellation. Now the Cancer constellation might not be there. Yes, mind you this. These constellations, because the universe is expanding, the constellations then and now have slightly changed. But still, the reason why it is named is because similarly Tropic of Capricorn. That is why it was named. So the line was nearer to the Capricorn constellation, etc. There are so many applications right now you can download, and you can see all these constellations in your phone also. Yes, There are so many applications, you can know that. Anyhow, leave about that. The thing which I would like to tell you, why these two latitudes are important, because that is regarding with vertical rays. Why they are named so, that is because of in the past the Greeks have observed that these are very nearer to the constellations of Cancer and Capricorn. Anyhow, leave about that. Why 66 and of north and 90 degrees, 66 and of degrees south are important latitudes? Once again, the thing will be, you will be having the concept of either day or night here. 24 hours of daylight, 24 hours of darkness will be found around this. You can see in the figure 9, the Antarctic circle, that entire region, if their one rotation is completed, that entire region is facing the sun around the 66, and so you can see in this diagram. So this entire region, that is 66 and half degrees south to 90 degrees south, this entire region is facing the sun continuously for 24 hours. As you can see, this is the line. As the earth, imagine this picture, figure 9. Imagine it is rotating. As it rotates, no matter what happens, this part of the earth, Antarctic circle, will be always facing the sun from Antarctic circle to 90 degrees south. Because of which, etc., because of which what happens, the entire region is facing the sun, hence there is 24 hours of sunlight. And at the same time, what happening in northern hemisphere from 66 and half degrees north to 90 degrees north, as a continuous rotation is happening, this entire region is under sunlight. Sorry, it is not under sunlight, it is under darkness. So this region is under darkness because this is not an illuminated night, not an illuminated one, because of which, etc., you are having 24 hours of night here and you are having 24 hours of day here. So the concepts of 24 hours of day and 24 hours of night. So here the concept is, so the concept here is day or night. Usually when you talk, we will say day and night, right? Day and night. Whereas here the concept is day or night, either of it, not both in a day. So that's why, etc., we have 66 and half degrees north and south are important latitudes. I hope this is clearer to you. So what is equinox? Equinox is on this day, direct rays of the sun always fall on the equator. At this direct rays of the sun fall on the equator, because of which, etc., the whole earth experiences, what happens? The whole earth experiences equal length of day and equal length of night. The whole earth, mind you, it is not just only one part, whole earth. The entire earth's areas experiences equal days and equal nights. That is why it is called as equinox. So what happens on this day? Direct rays of the sun fall on the equator. At this position, neither of the poles is tilted towards the sun. So neither of the poles is tilted towards the sun. So the whole earth experiences equal days and equal nights. This is called as an equinox. 21st March and September 23rd are the equinox's days. Right? You can see in this photograph. You see here what happens. If this is the equator line, the vertical rays of the sun will fall exactly here, because of which, etc., the whole day, the whole earth experiences day and night at this point of day. So you can see in this photograph, March 21st, what happens? The illumination is falling exactly at half, because of which you are facing 24 hours of, there is equal length of day and night here and here. So this part and this part, and at the same time, what is happening? Why equator you are finding vertical rays, etc.? The vertical rays are exactly at equator. So this part, okay, because of which, etc., you are having equinoxes days. Similarly, you can observe the same point on September 22nd, where in which etc. you can find a similar concept. So figure 8 and figure 6 are the equinoxes days where in which you are trying to understand. Then solstice. Solstice. What is solstice? A solstice is an event in which a planet's poles are most extremely inclined towards or away from the star it orbits. So, because of the extreme inclination, you are finding the maximum day or night. What is usually a solstice meaning is it is an event in which a planet's poles are most extremely inclined, that is tilted in simple language, towards or away from the star it orbits. So you can sign that. You can see in this now these pictures from December 21st and June 21st, that is figure 7 and 9. You can find that this northern hemisphere, so this is the division etc. and this is the northern hemisphere. Sorry, this is one part of the globe. So this part is always facing the sun and this part is away from the sun, and whereas here in the northern hemisphere as a whole, if you see, sorry, where is that? Just a minute. Yes, this is equator and here this is northern hemisphere. Northern hemisphere is facing the sun and southern hemisphere is away from the sun, because of which etc. the extreme inclination which you are finding. That's what I have given the definition. You can see here etc. June 21st. Northern, imagine the rotation is happening here. As the earth is rotating, what happens? Majority of the northern hemisphere is facing the sun and majority of the southern hemisphere is away from the sun. That's what I have discussed in the meaning of a solstice. A solstice is an event in which when a planet's poles are most extremely inclined towards or away from the star it orbits. So 21st June and 22nd December are the most important solstices days. What happens on these days? Direct rays of the sun fall directly on Tropic of Cancer on 21st June. Northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. Northern hemisphere receives more heat, because of which it is called summer. 21st June is called summer solstice in northern hemisphere and winter solstice in the southern hemisphere, because southern hemisphere is away. So usually when I say 21st June in your textbooks, and if you remember in your childhood when you have studied, these days are usually called as summer solstices days and winter solstices days. Versus but June solstice, 21st June, we can call it as even June solstice, and this June solstice is summer solstice for northern hemisphere and winter solstice for the southern hemisphere. Why? Seasons are varying. Then what happens here? Direct rays of the sun fall directly on Tropic of Capricorn on 22nd December. Then southern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun. Southern hemisphere receives more heat. 22nd December, summer solstice in southern hemisphere and winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. So as you see in this diagram, this is the rotation orbit you have across this orbit as the earth rotates. So 21st March, what happens? There is vertical rays falling on equator. As they fall on equator etc., what is usually happening around this part, sorry, this is the equator, right? So vertical rays will be falling exactly on the equator. As they fall vertical rays on the equator etc., what is happening? There is an equinox, equal length of day and night. Because there is equal length of day and night etc., there is a variation. Then as the revolution continues, what happens? By the time you come to June, that is from March to June, what is happening? Vertical rays of the sun are moving from northern hemisphere or moving from equator towards northern hemisphere to the point of 23.5 degrees north. So what is happening? Vertical from March to June, vertical rays of the sun are moving from equator to Tropic of Cancer. Tropic of Cancer. Because of which, etc. What is happening? We call this, what do you call this is in geographical language? Apparent movement of the sun. Apparent movement of the sun. Do you think is the sun really moving? No. Sun is constant, but the earth is moving as it is revolving. It is moving from this point to this point. As it is moving, and because of the tiltness it has, etc., you are finding this seasonal variation. So that's why it is called as apparent movement of the sun. That means apparent means it looks like, but not perhaps so. So apparent movement of the sun is, that is nothing but movement of the vertical rays of the sun's rays, which are falling on equator on March 21st and falling on Tropic of Cancer on June 21st. So this movement, this shift. So this part, if you see, this is northern hemisphere. Vertical rays are in the northern hemisphere between these three. That is the reason why this part is called summer mostly. And the most length of the day will be the maximum on this day, on 21st June in northern hemisphere. Now what happens from June to September? Vertical rays are shifting from 21st June to, we are shifting from equator, Tropic of Cancer to equator by September. So once again by September 22nd or 23rd, whichever you call, etc., the original September 22nd or September 3rd, what is happening? The original conditions, whatever you found out on March 21st, are replaced here. So equator once again at the same place, etc., vertical rays will be seen. And now what happened? From September 22nd to December 22nd, vertical rays are shifting from equator to Tropic of Capricorn in the south. So vertical rays are shifting in the south. Now vertical rays are now in the southern areas, etc. This is southern hemisphere summer. For us it is away from the sun. For us it is winter. So what is happening between what is happening between as a whole between these 4 months? Just a minute. So imagine this is the equator, what is happening, and this is Tropic of Cancer and this is Tropic of Capricorn. So 0 degrees. March 21st, vertical rays are falling at the equator. This is equator. Then from here, vertical rays are shifting from March 21st to June 21st at Tropic of Cancer. So as the vertical rays are shifting, this is what you call apparent movement of the sun. And by the time June, once again they come back to their original position by September 22nd rather. And once again the vertical rays will shift towards southern hemisphere 23.5 degrees south by around December 22nd or 23rd. What is this 22nd or 23rd? It is nothing but around, what you say, these are leap days, leap years, the years of leap days, leap years, which we find variation. So what is happening as you see from June 21st? So from June 21st to December 22nd, for 6 months, the vertical rays are moving south. I think if you find any geographical textbook, you will find these words called northward migration of the sun or southward migration of the sun or apparent movement of the sun. So northward, or you can also call it as southward migration, or else we can also call as apparent movement of the sun, as we have discussed. So what is happening from March, from June to south, June to December? South vertical rays of the sun are migrating south. What is happening from December to March? Vertical rays are moving north from the southern hemisphere of Tropic of Capricorn, etc. We are moving north. So this is what you need to remember. Whenever you hear these words, northward migration of the sun, southward migration of the sun, please tend to remember these points. So once again, just study here. 22nd December, what is happening? It is summer solstice in southern hemisphere, winter solstice in northern hemisphere. These are the points, keywords which you tend to remember. I think this is the point which you need to remember. What is happening? So these are the diagrams, etc. I hope you have understood very well. Based on which I would going to give some conditions on equinoxes and solstices. So this concept before discussing, etc. Think. So before you write, before you note down this, please understand this. What will be the latitude of vertical rays of the sun? Latitude of vertical rays of the sun in March, June 21st, September, December. So what will be the latitude of vertical rays of the sun? Try to think. So latitude of the vertical rays of the sun in March 21st will be at which position? Equator, as you discussed now. Equator, latitude of the vertical rays. What will be the latitude of vertical rays of sun in June solstice? Tropic of Cancer. Then equator, then Tropic of Capricorn. As you can see, first condition, latitude of the vertical rays of the sun. So this latitude on March 21st equinox, it is at equator. On 21st June solstice, latitude Tropic of Cancer. Then once again to equator, once again to Tropic of Capricorn. That is what you have studied in these diagrams. Observe these four diagrams very closely. Latitude of the vertical rays on March 21st, it is at equator. You can see in this figure 6. Then on figure June 21st, it is on Tropic of Cancer. Then on September 22nd, once again it is on equator. Then December 21st, it is once again on vertical rays on Tropic of Capricorn. So how latitude of the vertical rays shifting? That's what the condition which I have discussed now. Then length of the day at equator. What will be the length of the day at the equator in March? So what will be the length of the equator in March? Yes. So what is that? Length of the day at equator. At equator, what will be the length of the day? In March, what happens? Equinox month, length of the day will be always 12 hours, right? Wherever the world. In June, what happens? The length of the day at equator will be more than 12, less than 12, what happens? It will be once again length of the day will be 12 hours in June, 12 hours in September, 12 hours in December. Why 12, 12, 12? We are talking about equator. So as we are talking more about equator, etc. So what happens? Length of the day at equator, it will be always 12 hours whenever the time of the month is, or day of the month is. So length of the day at equator always 12 hours. What happens to the length of the day in mid latitudes of the northern hemisphere? In mid latitudes of the northern hemisphere, the length of the day in the mid latitudes of the northern hemisphere will vary as the day approaches. If you can see in this part, equator, etc., vertical rays are now in June falling on Tropic of Cancer, because of which, etc., as there is a continuous rotation on that day, there is more facing the sun, because of which length of the day will be maximum. So, and this length of the day, as you move from the equator towards the northern hemisphere, the length of the day tend to increase. It tends to increases as much as possible. So you see, length of the day in the mid latitudes of the northern hemisphere on 21st March, because it is an equinox day, it will be 12 hours. Similarly, 23rd September, because it is an equinox day, it will be 12 hours. You can see in this diagram, in this table. See, this is 12 hours and this is also 12 hours. Why? Both are equinoxes means. What happened to the length of the day in mid latitudes of the northern hemisphere? On June 21st, it tend to increases with increase in latitude. Increases with increase in latitude. That means, so what happens usually is, for example, you are located at 0 degrees, 10 degrees north, 20 degrees north, 30 degrees north, 40 degrees north. Imagine so, 45 degrees. So take London. So you take any city, for example, Hyderabad here. Then you take at 0 degrees Singapore, very nearer to it. So what happens? Here, the length of the day, even on Tropic of Cancer, will be 12 hours. What happens here? As the latitude line is increasing, the length of the day tend to increases. So there is around, roughly, don't take it as an exact calculation, but for every 10 degrees increase in latitude, 10 degrees increase in latitude, you will be finding 45 minutes increasing in the average. So 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night. So 10 degrees, usually it will be around 12 hours 45 minutes of day, and obviously 11 hours 15 minutes of night. So in a subtropical country, what is that? Tropical and a subtropical country. As it is a tropical and subtropical country, the amount of variations of the length of the day you will not find much in our country, though you do find it. We will not be observing. For example, what is the average length of the daytime in our country? What is the average length of the daytime in our country? Usually, when you see in summer, the sun rises at around 5:30, 5:45 and sets at around 6:15, 6:30, even 7. So 6:30 to 7, and sun rises at around 5:30 in the morning. So what is happening? Average 6 to 6, 12 hours. But because you are finding increase of half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the night, roughly there is 13 hours of day and 11 hours of night. As you know, as you moving up the latitude, north latitude, as you are coming to Delhi and then into Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, and then into Kashmir, definitely this will increase. It will not be more. It will be 13.5. It will be around 10.5. So this will keep on increasing. Why it is increasing? Because latitude as increases, length of the day also keeps on increasing. Then if you take London, so what happens in a London? So in London, you will be finding around So in London, you will be finding around 15 hours of day, 9 hours of night. 15 hours of day and 9 hours of night. Then if you find in similarly in then if you find in Moscow, what happens? Moscow, what happens is 18 hours of day, 6 hours of night. Yes, if it is 18 hours, now you calculate the sun rising. Sun sets around morning 9 o'clock. Sorry, sun starts rising at around the sunrise is around morning, say for example 4 o'clock, and sets around late night 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. You can find even sunrise, sunlight even at 10 o'clock, etc. That's why if you remember, Norway is called as land of midnight sun. Land of midnight sun. So the land of midnight sun, etc. Norway is called because even at 12 p.m. in the evening, in the night, you will be finding sunrise. That is the reason why you can find sunlight. That is the reason why it is called land of midnight sun. So as the latitude increases, length of the day also will vary. Beyond 6600 degrees, what happens? It will be 24 hours of day. That's why it is called length of the day in mid latitudes. Middle latitudes, mid means middle latitudes. Middle latitude means anything beyond 10 and anything beyond 60, less than 60. Around 10 to 60, we can solve mid latitude, usually around 40. So, what you do, there is one homework. So, identify a city on equator. For example, Nairobi or Singapore, right? Then identify the place where you are originated in India or where you are living right now. Say I am from Hyderabad. You can choose any one of it. Then from Nairobi to Hyderabad, then identify Delhi. If you are from Delhi, then just one, right? No Hyderabad and Delhi. Then next, identify London. Then identify Moscow. Then similarly in the southern hemisphere, what you do, go to the internet, type this Nairobi, these cities names, one city at a time, type this name, identify sunrise and sunset timings on these all most important equinoxes and solstices days. If you say Delhi sunrise and sunset time, you will get the entire list of 365 days. Yes, you will get the list. Within this list, identify on these 4 days. As I am trying to say, it will be maximum on 21st Delhi, maximum on 21st. Why? It is located in Tropic of in the northern hemisphere. Maximum on 21st, and then minimum on 22nd December. You will be finding that length of the day. Similarly, as the latitude increases, that means from Nairobi to Delhi, Delhi to London to Moscow, Moscow more around 60, London around 45, Delhi etc. It will be around, say for example, around latitude will be around 27. Yes, if I am not wrong, right? So these things etc. What I'm trying to identify, what we are trying to identify, as the latitude keeps on increasing, the length of the day will be also keeps on increasing. So I told you 12 in Nairobi, 12 hours of day because equator. Then Hyderabad etc. add around 1.5 hour. So that is 13.5 day and 12, 11.10, 10.5 night. Total is 24. Then Delhi, then London etc. 45, 15 hours of day and 6 hours of night. Moscow 18 hours of day and 9 hours, 6 hours of night. So sun rises at around morning 8 o'clock, morning 4 o'clock, sorry, example, morning 4 o'clock and sets around 12 o'clock, around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, somewhere like that. Then similarly in winter what happens? The opposite. Sun sets for a city in India, usually sun rises at around 6:30 and sets by around 4:30, 5:30 itself. Why? That is the impact of these things. Then Moscow, etc. Sun rises at around morning 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Sun sets by around morning, evening 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So 9 to 3. So only around 6 hours of daylight. So that's why these are extreme climates. It looks odd to you. I think whoever are hearing this for the first time, I think for them it will be very, very hard to digest, difficult to digest, but that's how it is, right? So I have a story here. So one of the story, etc. So there was I was watching a movie. In one of the movie, etc., hero and the heroine, they are going to a date. So they said they have decided that they'll go to a date at around 8:30 in the dinner, in the evening dinner. But as I'm seeing the next scene where the hero and heroine are going to the dinner, what I found was there they went to Thames River Bridge in, for example, on the river in London. That's where the shooting was happening there. So what happened? 8:30 is the dinner time, but still, as they're shooting there, as I'm seeing that scene in the movie, what happened was I'm still finding that there is sunlight. I thought when I heard it the first, when I saw this for the first time, I thought director is in. What is this director thinks about the people? Does he thinks that people are idiots? He can show, he can say dinner, and he can say evening, and then even at 8:30 he is showing sunlight. Then etc. Later on, I understood who is an idiot. So it is me actually. So that the thing is, as initial days, etc. When I heard for the first time, this is in my back in my college days, etc. I don't know about this concept. As I understood slowly, then I remember this concept very, very well. So whenever I listened, I explain this concept, etc. I always keep getting this story, etc. The thing, this is what about the story is. It is always difficult to identify. It is I never understood this concept that sun will be rising even beyond, there will be sunlight even after 6 o'clock. So later on, etc., because of the latitude London, there is sunlight even at 8:30. So that is the reason why you are finding it. That is the reason why even in Europe you find something called daylight saving time. Why? The length of the day increases, that's why they have daylight saving time. I hope you are having this topic clearer. This topic is clearer to you. I hope you are following it. Yes, anybody have any doubts, etc., please reply in the chat section, etc. I'm observing the chat. Yes, please reply. How are you following? How do you feel about this class? Yes, this is what the condition is. Please remember, length of the day in mid latitude of the northern hemisphere. It will be 12 hours at equinox, 12 hours at then what happens in 21st June solstice? It increases with increase in latitude. That's what you have decreased. Similarly, the opposite will happen. Decreases with increase in latitude on 22nd December. That is the reason why I asked you to show. I have asked to study. Compare now Nairobi. Nairobi with Cape Town. The length of the day and night will be varying. So this is why length of the day in mid latitude of the northern hemisphere decreases with increase in latitude. Similarly, next one, length of the day in mid latitudes of southern hemisphere. What happens to the length of the day in mid latitudes of the southern hemisphere? It is 12 hours of day on 21st March. Then that decreases with increase in latitude on 21st June. That's what now. Now we are talking about length of the day mid latitude of the southern hemisphere on 21st June. What happens there? It decreases with increase in latitude. Why does it decreases with increase in latitude? Why? Because on June 21st, etc., southern latitude regions will be away from the sun. As the latitude decreases, etc., there will be decrease. 23rd September, etc., equinox, etc., will be having 12 hours. Once again, on 22nd December, solstice in mid latitude of the southern hemisphere. We are talking about southern hemisphere. It increases, increase in latitude. You can find the last row here and the first row here, both are interchanged. Why they are interchanged? Because northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and so also the dates can vary. It is almost similar. So please tend to remember these concepts. For these two topics, these two rows itself, I ask you to identify this one. Identify all these 5 cities, etc. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So some in the north, some in the southern hemisphere, some in the northern hemisphere. Identify all these variations and try to identify how the latitude of the variations are varying, etc. You can find in Google, etc. If you find some weather, there are so many websites of weather.com, accurate weather, all these things, etc. You can go there. You can identify the each cities, what is the daylight saving time, and what is the time of the sunrise and sunset. Then next 24 hours of daylight, etc. Where do you find 24 hours of daylight? Do you find 24 hours of daylight on equinox day? No. Why? Because it's always 12 hours. That is the reason why there is nowhere in the world you will find 24 hours of daylight on equinoxes days. And similarly, 24 hours of darkness also is not found. That's why all the equinoxes dates will not find. There is a, what do you say, a empty column over there. Then next 21st June, what happens? 24 hours of daylight. Where do you find? From Arctic pole to North pole. That is 66.5 degrees north to 90 degrees north. You can see this picture again. You can see 24 hours of daylight is found at Arctic circle to North pole. So this is the region. On the same day, what happens here? 24 hours of darkness will be found at Antarctic circle. Right? That's it. 24 hours of daylight, etc. Darkness, 24 hours of darkness, you are finding on the same day Antarctic circle to South Pole. Similarly, 24 hours of daylight, you will find on 22nd December solstice, Antarctic circle to South Pole, that is in the southern hemisphere. You can see that this is figure 9, December 21st, Antarctic circle that is facing towards the sun. You can see these 4 diagrams in this chapter, in this place. You can imagine this 22nd. Why you are finding these variations? Because sun is located here, and you are finding that this northern hemisphere is facing the sun here, and southern hemisphere is facing the sun here. Because of which you are finding these variations. Because of these variations, etc., you are finding all these kind of things. I hope these concepts are clearer. Because of these equinoxes and solstices, because of these variations, etc., only there is the length of the day in mid latitude is varying, the vertical rays are varying. Because of vertical rays varying, length of the day varying, etc., the temperature which we receive on the earth will be varying. As this varies, etc., there is seasonal variations. How the seasons in the northern hemisphere and seasons in the southern hemisphere vary, this is why they are varying. The extent of the sunlight, the duration of the sunlight, what is the nature of the rays of the sun, all these things determine a season. These seasons are varying across the globe. You are finding these variations of conditions on equinoxes and solstices. So in the northern hemisphere, spring starts in equinox month. Summer is around 21st June. 23rd month, autumn, winter. And similarly in southern hemisphere, autumn, winter, spring, summer, the variations. Usually around the world, imagine that there are only 2 seasons, summer and winter. As there is a variation across the equatorial areas, there is no concept of winter, there is only summer. Across the polar areas, there is always around winter, less about summer. In between the variations, etc., you will find things like spring and autumns, right? See, these are the variations. I hope this concept is clear. Why did I discuss these concepts in very much in detail? Please observe these things. In 2 minutes, we'll continue the class. Just a minute. Yes. So let's continue. So why did I discuss more about these concepts is because all these things significantly influence temperature. What is the average temperature across a certain region? The temperature is significantly because of seasons and the intensity of the range of the sunlight. So temperature determines the heat, and heat is the basic aspect of biomes. That is the reason why I have discussed all these geographical concepts in detail. And because of temperature, there will be pressure variations. Because of pressure, there will be what is it? Because of temperature, etc., there will be impacting pressure. Because of pressure, they will be impacting winds. Because of winds, they will be impacting rainfall. And rainfall will straight away impact the vegetation. So vegetation. So then what is a biome? A biome is unique set of ecosystems in simple way. If you remember the first class as I discussed, species, individual species, group of species called population, population to community, community, from community etc. Group of communities living together in unique conditions in the way they interact, ecosystems, multiple varieties of ecosystems etc. We have biomes, multiple variety of biomes together. We call it as biosphere. So these biomes are nothing but unique environmental ecosystem conditions which you find in certain regions is what you call biome. That's why, and this biome is significantly impacted by rainfall and temperature. And as we have discussed temperature concepts of equinoxes and solstices in detail, because temperature and rainfall are the only two important criteria for biomes. Any criteria of a biome will be secondary to these two concepts of temperature and rainfall. Other concepts etc. more less important, but these are more important. I hope this linkage is clear from temperature to pressure, pressure to winds, winds to rainfall, rainfall to vegetation. Because of this linkage, there will be a certain impact. Why there is an evergreen forest? Because the vegetation of evergreen forest is a product of extra high rainfall, which is nothing but because of high temperature. Yes. High temperature, high evaporation, more rainfall, more vegetation. Why deserts are so? Because of less rainfall. Why less rainfall? There is once again the variations in temperature and pressure, winds. All these things will be impacting these regions very, very significantly. That is the reason why, etc. Temperature and rainfall concepts. So biomes. Let's start. We'll deal today with tropical evergreen forest biome, which will help you in clearing the topic's understanding. So what is a biome? What is a biome? Before discussing the concepts, please understand. A biome is a large natural ecosystem, as I told you, wherein all the biota, that is animals and plants, have minimum common characteristics, that is a set of common characteristics and more or less uniform environmental conditions. More or less uniform environmental conditions. So uniform environmental conditions, whichever you are finding, is called a biome. So what is a biome? It's a large natural ecosystem wherein all the plants and animals have a set of common characteristics, and because of this common characteristics, there is more or less roughly uniform environmental conditions in a region, which that region is called biome. And this biome will be internally homogeneous to this criteria and externally heterogeneous. So if I take this is one biome and this is another biome, So imagine first I will be discussing about A. So usually A biome etc. If you take this point, if you take this point, if you take this point, any point within this region, usually it tend to have minimum common characteristics of biota and more or less same uniform conditions. That's why it is internally homogeneous. What is homogeneous? Same. Internally within this biome it is homogeneous. Compare this with another biome. There will be variations. That is what we call internally homogeneous and externally heterogeneous. Heterogeneous externally when you compare with outside biomes. Internally it is same. Then temperature and precipitation, which are the most important internally homogeneous, externally heterogeneous criteria? Temperature and precipitation. These temperature and precipitation broadly determine the kind of regions which will be turned into a biome. Right, because these are the main criteria. I have discussed broadly about temperature. Tomorrow I'll broadly discuss about precipitation, and then I'll further elaborate on those concepts. These are the main criteria. What are the other criteria? Other criteria may be vegetation, might be plants animals, soil conditions. So other things like be vegetation, biota, plants and animals, soil conditions, even these are also have similar characteristics. So what is a biome? So now I can explain to you a region which has similar characteristics of temperature, precipitation, vegetation, plants and animals, soil within an area is called a biome. So that is what the meaning of this is. I hope this point is clear. What is internally homogeneous? All these criteria of temperature, precipitation, vegetation, soil condition usually tend to be similar within this region, and externally it is different. So that region is called as a biome. Then what we will study about each biome in our classes will be is what will be our approach studies is, first of all, a biome. We will be dealing with a location where that a certain biome is located, which places, location and distribution. Location is by latitude, distribution is by areas. So location, the latitude, distribution, areas will discuss. Then what are the criteria which made that biome, temperature and precipitation, we'll discuss about that. Then what are the unique characteristics of each biome which we have discussed, we'll deal about that. That means because of the temperature and precipitation etc, there will be certain unique characteristics for every biome. We'll be discussing about that. Then, what is flora and fauna of the animals which you find in these biomes? We'll discuss about that. Then, how these animals and plants are trying to adapt towards those environmental conditions. We'll discuss about that. So, this trying to adapt to those environmental conditions, adaptations, I told you, trait and a process. It is a trait, any process which facilitates survival is called adaptation. What is that? Any process which facilitates survival. Any process which facilitates survival is called is called adaptation, and this adaptation is a trait and a process which evolves. For these things etc, how they are adapted, we will be discussing here. Structural form adaptations. Rabbits having large ears to give off heat is one variety of adaptation. Physiological adaptation, functional adaptation, what an organism does. I will give you an example. A snake having a venom, plants secreting some kind of harmful things etc to protect themselves from herbivores. All these are functional adaptations of an animal. Then certain animals etc will behaviorally they will be migrating or hibernating because of the harsh environmental conditions. So this structural physical form, rabbits having large ears to give off heat. Where do rabbits are found? usually in high temperature areas. Why they have to have this structural adaptation of large ears? So that their temperature body is controlled, because their environment is very high temperature environment. That's why this adaptation. So any process which facilitates survival. If the rabbits doesn't have those large ears to give off heat, what happens? Their body will be having more heat, and more heat, etc. Slowly it is difficult to survive. That's why it is facilitating survival structural form. These kind of adaptations questions can be asked. And what will be the important questions which they will be asking? They will be asking questions on criteria of temperature and precipitation, and they will be also asking questions on adaptations. We will discuss how questions are framed further upon. As of now, while we are discussing about biomes, etc., we will discuss biomes in this fashion. Every biome, what is the location and distribution, what is the criteria, because of these criteria, how unique conditions are formed, because of these unique conditions, what are the animals and plants which can be seen, how these animals and plants are adapted. This is the motto of our preparation. And as you can see the different varieties of biomes in these diagrams. So there are two different diagrams. We will discuss them now. So you see in this table, what is happening is the temperature is moving from warmness to dryness, that is high temperature to cold temperatures, as you move across this triangle from the bottom to the top. Whereas as you move from east to west, the rainfall is varying. So one side you are talking about rainfall. So this criteria you are talking about rainfall. This criteria you are talking about temperature. So you see more rainfall and more temperature. We call that region as tropical rainforest or tropical evergreen forest. As the temperature, this entire region more temperature, tropical region. As the rainfall is varying, tropical rainforests are moving toward deciduous to savannas to grasslands and to desert. And here desert, more temperature and less rainfall. And as you move from tropical to temperate, temperate to boreal, boreal to tundra, polar, that is temperature as a whole is decreasing. This is the native of the diagram. So next time when you are drawing this diagram, you need not study. Just draw a triangle. Within this triangle, bottom is tropical areas, between temperate areas, and upper is polar areas. So the most area which you find is polar. Beneath polar you find boreal. Boreal is nothing but taiga or coniferous forest. Then between temperate region, this is tropical region. So tropical rainforest to desert, one transition. Temperate to deciduous to cold desert, one transition. Boreal forest tundra, one transition. All these are different transitions which we have. Then the same thing which you are talking about, biome distribution with respect to temperature and precipitation. You can see in this diagram, you can see tropical forest temperature is around 20 to 27, 25 degrees centigrade. Rainfall is varying from minimum of 150 centimeters of rainfall to 400 also centimeters of rainfall also. Nowhere in this world do you find such huge rainfall as you are finding in tropical forest, right? Then grasslands. What happens to grassland? Grassland means can't support trees. Why? No rainfall. Just where grasslands rainfall is around 100. Around 100. Coniferous. You see, temperature is reducing now. Taiga. This is boreal forest. Coniferous is boreal. Temperature is around 10 degrees, 5 degrees, but is not very, what do you say? Not less than 0. As it is not less than 0, it is taiga, but less than 10. And rainfall is very less, average. You see desert, grasslands here. What is happening here? Temperatures are very high, but rainfall is very low. That's why it is grass, that's why it is a desert. Then you find here also, this is a hot desert, this might be a cold desert. This might be tropical grassland, this might be temperate grassland. Temperate grassland are prairies. This part is prairies, whereas this part we can call it as tropical grasslands as savannas. So that's what the annual biome distribution is. It is a product of temperature and rainfall, two major criteria. I hope you have understood these concepts very well. So now let us discuss one biome for today. First one, tropical evergreen biome. Tropical evergreen biome. What is this tropical evergreen biome? So where this tropical evergreen biome is found, it is location between 10 degrees north to 10 degrees south. So between the latitudes equator, if this is the equator line, see Brazil equator line, this is equator. Around 10 degrees north to 10 degrees south you can find the regions, right? This is why these green color lines are all the indicators of tropical evergreen biome. So 10 degrees north to 10 degrees south. Distribution areas. So this is Amazon basin in South America. So Amazon basin, Colombian forest, Amazon basin. This is Congo Zaire. Congo Zaire. This is Indonesian forest, Malaysian forest. This is Philippines, right? These are the areas. In India, you find mostly in the Western Ghats, Sri Lanka, and a few parts of Northeast India. You are finding this. So few parts here more rainfall, temperature is high. That's where you find tropical evergreen forest. Primarily around whenever you say tropical evergreen forest, the first thing which you get into your brain is Amazon, and the next thing is Africa. So these are the areas here, right? If you can see in this book, hot equatorial regions of areas of what? These are the areas of Brazil and Colombian Plateau and Congo Zaire, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and all these are the areas of hot equatorial regions or tropical evergreen biome. Then what are the characteristics? See, once again, please remember, we are discussing location. Then you will discuss criteria, temperature and precipitation. Then you will discuss, because of this temperature and precipitation, unique characteristics. What is happening here? Temperature is hot and humid. Hot and humid throughout the year. Because it is hot and humid, there is no concept of summer, winter, only summer. That's why there is no difference between summer and winter, only summer. So if you ask around persons of equatorial region, etc., they don't have summer. They will not understand the variations of summer to winter. Every day it is rainfall, every day it is hot in the morning, every day it is wet in the evening. So almost what you find, great uniformity of temperature throughout the year. Throughout the year, as it is around the equinox where the temperature is, as we discussed, the criteria is there, 12 hours of daylight across March, June. So if you remember the table, 12 hours of daylight around the equator, around across the entire year. That is the reason why there is great uniformity of temperature throughout the year, because of which 20 to 27 degrees Celsius temperature is found. And because of this, that rainfall is 200 centimeters rainfall. There is more rainfall because there is more evaporation. And why this kind of rainfall? Usually it occurs out of 365 days, 300 days to in a year, you will get rainfall post afternoon, after 2 p.m. Usually around 3 p.m., 4 p.m., etc. You will find as much rainfall as possible. So almost every day, etc., it is hot in the morning, wet in the evening. So hot comma wet equatorial region, that is what the meaning you have studied here. In this figure you can see hot wet equatorial regions, hot every day, wet every day. So that's where there is great uniformity of temperature and throughout the year, etc. There is no concept of winter imagine, etc. And what is the kind of rainfall you find? The rainfall, they say the rainfall here doesn't, the rainfall, etc. They say the rainfall here pours down. They say the rainfall here pours down. It doesn't, the rainfall will not occur. It simply pours down. There is so much significant, huge rainfall within a short period of time. So within 10 minutes, you can get as much amount of rainfall, and once again, there will be a bright sunlight. So much variations of rainfall in the evening. But temperature 20 to 27 degrees Celsius is the average temperature which you find continuously, and there is continuity of rainfall, and every month there will be significant rainfall within the 12 months of a year. You cannot identify where a certain month is very less. For example, India monsoonal region, you can identify so much amount of huge rainfall is only between June to September. June, July, December, August, September. Beyond that, very less rainfall. Whereas here, it is not like that. Every month, January to December, the rainfall will be significant in every month. But within these months, there will be 2 months which will be, there will be double maxima rainfall. Double maxima rainfall. Why there is double maxima rainfall here? What is the meaning of that? Why double maxima rainfall? Double maxima rainfall is around equinoxes. So double maxima rainfall is, for example, if you have identified a diagram, etc., a tabular diagram, a graphical diagram of the amount of rainfall which you received in every month. For example, this is January, this is February, like that, etc. Entire 12 months, if you do it, what you find is 2 months of April or post March and post September, around October, that rainfall will be huge. Why it is huge? Because this is equinoxes month. Vertical rays will be exactly at equator. More evaporation, more heat, more rainfall. So within the 12 months, etc., these 2 months, even more rainfall. So usually it is high rainfall. High rainfall. These 2 months, very high rainfall. Double maxima rainfall. 2 months, what happens? Very high rainfall. So double maxima rainfall, etc., very high. Why it is very high? Because the temperature is also very high. Because of this characteristic, we remember this area with double maxima rainfall areas. What is double maxima? 2 months of equinoxes months having high rainfall. Then because of this, what will be the vegetation? These are the characteristics. Because of the characteristics, what will be the vegetation? There will be evergreen forest, rainforest. We are growing broad leaves evergreen forest. The leaves, etc., are broader now, and they are evergreen. Why broad leaves, etc.? More amount of energy, more amount of water. There is more amount of transpiration. You can do it, for which trees, leaves as a whole truly become broad leaves. Why there is broad leaves? Because this is the adaptation. And what is the variety of vegetation you find? Canopy vegetation, umbrella based vegetation, etc., where the vegetation is in a, what you say, in an umbrella shaped. That means roughly around, you can see the trees in this fashion, etc. One tree in this fashion. Because if you see from an aerial view, say for example from a helicopter, you are seeing it, the canopy of vegetation looks like an umbrella shaped vegetation at the top. That's why it is called canopy vegetation or umbrella vegetation, as you can see in this picture. This is an aerial photograph. You can see the topmost layer, etc. There is a vegetation is like an umbrella shaped vegetation, which is called umbrella or canopy based vegetation. This is what tropical evergreen is. That's where, then these tropical evergreen forests are well stratified. What is stratification? Stratified means what? This is nothing but layered. So if this is ground layer, there is one layer over here. Ground layer is one layer, secondary layer, primary layer, fourth layer, and fifth layer. Fifth layer is the canopy vegetation. These tropical evergreen forests are well stratified. They are having a multi-layered continuous canopy growing in layers which are around 5 layers. So just for understanding, you have stratification. They might ask you, which of the following areas have vegetation where there will be layered wise? Answer, tropical evergreen forest. Then, the most thickest area of the entire world, Amazon lowlands, the forest is so dense here that it is called selvas. Forest here is so dense that it is called as what? Selvas. Amazon lowland forest, etc. Density of the forest, it is given a new name, selvas. Where do you find selvas? Amazon forest. That's what you need to remember. Then another kind of thing which you find is epiphytes. Epiphytes are nothing but that I think we have discussed as part of biotic interactions. We have discussed this concept called epiphyte. So amensalism, commensalism, all these things, mutualism, all these things, etc. Epiphytes are nothing but that grow upon another plant or object merely for physical support. Physical support. Epiphytes have no attachment to the ground or other obvious nutrient source and are not parasitic on the supporting plants. So one plant, the big tree and the small plant, tree is providing a home for the plant where the plant is getting all the nutrients from it, and tree is not having a no negative effect. That's why these are not parasiting on the supporting plants. These have no attachment to the ground or other obvious nutrient source. They merely grow upon another plant or object merely for physical support and get all the nutrients. These are called epiphytes. So this is the what you can see in this photograph. There is a branch of a tree. On this branch of a tree, you are finding other plants which are growing. These other plants which are growing are called as epiphytes. Then what are the varieties of species you find? You can find species like mahogany, rosewood, ebony, greenheart, etc. are the variety of species which you find. Mahogany, rosewood, the ebony, greenheart, etc. are the type of species which you find in these areas. The kind of species names. Then another point, some more points. Here what happens? Sun rays can't reach forest floor, because of which only around 2% of the sun rays will be reaching the forest floor. So in general I can say there is less forest sun rays which are reaching because of the canopy vegetation, because of which there is pitch darkness at the ground level. Then wherever there are two trees, you are finding climbers and creepers variety. Why do you find climbers or creeper variety is, for example, this is one tree, this is another tree, etc. The small climbers and creepers, etc. they creep for sunlight. This is the area which you find gap. They tend to creep. The climbing variety, creeper variety, etc. is for nothing but fight for sunlight. So that's why climbers, creepers variety trees can be grown here. And what you find here usually is you will find multiple species at different stages of growth, not at similar stage. For example, there is a flowering stage and there is a harvesting stage. It is not like over a period of 12 months, 2 to 3 months, this is flowering stage, budding stage, and then slowly, etc. This season will be for harvesting. It is not like that. As there is uniform amount of energy of temperature and rainfall throughout the year, the species growth is not a product of season. You are finding multiple species at different stages of growth. So the species are at different stages of growth. That is one point. Within that, another point is there is multiple species. There is a multiplicity of species. The species are of multiple varieties. That is, if I have discussed the variety of species, mahogany, rosewood, ebony, greenheart, etc. are the multiple species. For example, from this diagram, I will try to give you a brief understanding. So imagine this species, imagine, okay, This species 1, 2, 3 are of one variety of species. That means, say example, they are mahogany. Imagine so. Then another species, etc. A, B, C. This is one variety of species. Now, while you are using it for exploitation, what that is to for cutting out the forest, why these areas are the least thought process one is, first of all, you need to identify same quality species, right? So 1, 2, 3 are one variety of species. A, B, C are one variety of species. Then within A, B, C, you need to identify at what stage of growth where this species is, at what stage of growth where this tree is, at what stage of growth this is. So first of all, multiple species, etc. You need to identify similar species. Then you need to identify stage of growth. Then you can use it for cutting of the trees, which you call lumbering activity. This lumbering as an activity will be beneficial when you are cultivating more species at the same time. So as there are dense forests, etc., as you are having multiple stage of growth, usually these forest areas, etc., are the not as highly exploited as you are finding out in other areas. Imagine, etc., taiga vegetation or deciduous. These are not as deciduous vegetation. These are not as exploited as you find in tropical evergreen. Taiga is more exploited, deciduous is more exploited than tropical forest. Please don't remember that tropical evergreen forests are not deforested. No, these are deforested. Wherever forests are there, humans will deforest it. There is no doubt about that. But within the forest ranges, etc., you will find that this variety of biome is less difficult to exploit. I'm said only difficult, not impossible, right? So difficult for exploitation because identification of the type of species and multiple stage of the growth will be difficult. So that's why it's difficult for exploitation and difficult for exploitation. Then which kind of species are found? You find monkeys, apes, which can be found at one level of vegetation, harmful reptiles on the ground level, etc. Then you will find so much amount of diversity here, so much amount of biodiversity. You see, a 10 square kilometer area can have as many as 1500 flowering plants, 750 species of trees, 400 species of birds, and 150 species of butterflies. See, butterfly is one species, right? 150 varieties of species of butterflies you can have. So much variety. So more biodiversity is found because of more energy here. Then what kind of animals are found here? The animals usually living in the emergent layer of the Amazon rainforest include birds, bats, gliders, and butterflies. So usually you find this variety of animals here, birds, bats. Then large raptors like white-tailed hawks, harpy eagles are top predators. Large raptors, you'll find eagles and all these are top predators, you'll find etc. Hawks and eagles, etc. Then one of the way they adapt is camouflage. Camouflage is adjusting towards the surrounding areas. You can find camouflage t-shirts of army, right? So the camouflage army, etc., as they are going into the desert areas, into the areas of forest, etc., they're kind of the shirt they wear, etc., it should be adjusted with the environment. That's why they have camouflage, etc. Similarly, so many animals, etc., will adapt towards camouflage. So one of the camouflage which you find is jaguar, which is found in the rainforest of Central and South America. These spots may be mistaken for leaves or flecks of sunlight because the kind of the spots which you find on this animal are adapted towards the surroundings of camouflage of plants or trees. That's why, etc., the spots on a jaguar may be mistaken for leaves or flecks of sunlight. Then next point, frogs thrive in the humidity. So frogs thrive in the humidity because it keeps their skin moist. You also find frogs here and they thrive in this humidity because it keeps their skin moist. Because this region has more rainfall, you will find more varieties of rocks. You can see so much time in news, new species of rocks are discovered in Western Ghats of India. Because in Western Ghats of India, you have so much amount of evergreen forest, you are finding out rocks or new species which you are trying to identify. Then these forests are the last virgin forests of the world, because these are the unexploited forests of the world, etc. Because interior areas there is more density, difficult to enter, and the same time it is you are finding harmful reptiles, all these things, the interior things, etc. The exterior areas, example, if you see Amazon, Amazon forest, etc. Imagine this is an Amazon forest. There will be more exploitation around this part, the edges, whereas the interior areas, etc., very difficult to difficult, because these are the most dense forest, and these are having harmful reptiles, naturally difficult for exploitation. Harmful reptiles, difficult for exploitation, etc. These are regarded as even global sink house of carbon dioxide. These are called as mega biodiverse regions. When you discuss the concept of biodiversity hotspots, biological reserves, etc., you will understand so many areas are found here only. And soils here, these are rapidly deteriorated because of high rainfall. There is more erosion and there is less topsoil fertility, because of which, etc., this is one of an indicating factor, limiting factor. What is this? Limiting factor. Soils as a whole are important limiting factors, because there is more rapid deterioration because of high rainfall. Because once again, high rainfall is making what kind of soil are you finding here? High rainfall is determining. High rainfall is determined by temperature. So these two determine the remaining things. Soils rapid deterioration, because more aeration, there is less topsoil fertility. I hope this is what you have understood about tropical evergreen forest. So what is the key things which you find, etc. here? The key things which you find here is camouflage, canopy of vegetation or umbrella of vegetation or double maxima rainfall is the two key characteristics from which you can drag all the remaining concepts. This is about tropical evergreen forest. I hope you have understood these concepts very well, etc. Tomorrow we'll continue the remaining concepts, etc. And thank you very much for watching the videos, etc. Any doubt sessions, any kind of doubts, whichever you have, etc., please ask it in the live chat section. I will be always trying to help you. Right, before you are closing it, please don't forget about subscription button of the Unacademy platform, etc. Subscribe to this class, this channel. Let's crack UPSC CSE English, etc. Hit the bell icon for more notifications. And while you are subscribing in the Unacademy platform, please don't forget to use this code VE10 to get a discount of additional 10%. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Good evening to all of you. Good night. Please be safe. Thank you very much. No, don't forget, whenever any doubts you are having, please try to ask these doubts in the chat section. Thank you.